This week, Mel has a few gaming suggestions for the crazy cat lady in all of us. I spend some time with Killing Floor 2, which is out now in early access, while Johnny heads to the movies to eat popcorn and check out Mad Max Fury Road. This is Player Attack. Hi, I'm Jessica Citizen, and this week I'm going to continue this starting off with the good news thing with some of the best news to hit sports games in a long time. For the first time in franchise history, FIFA 16 will feature 12 women's national teams when it launches later this year. It took EA 22 years of making football games to get to this point. It took the real-world FIFA more than 60. The teams, including Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, England, France, Germany, Italy, Mexico, Spain, Sweden, and the United States of America, will appear in several gameplay modes. They'll look the part too. The regular first 11 for each squad, plus some select reserves, have been scanned into the game using exactly the same techniques and technology as the men's teams, so you will be introduced to realistic models of real-world soccer stars. And while most of us were celebrating this pretty huge milestone, a bunch of people claiming to be football fans proved yet again why we can't have nice things, as they took great personal insult at the inclusion of women in their precious game, even though EA Sports has included the women's teams as an entirely optional feature. On to something completely different, and this week's crime news is a little out of left field. An entire shipment of Nintendo's new game Splatoon has been hijacked on its way to a UK retailer. The loss of the game itself isn't so much the problem in this case, it's more what else was on the truck that's presenting fans with a bit of drama. The truck contained all of the Splatoon special editions on their way to game stores, meaning that a stack of the already super limited Squid amiibo has gone missing. Given Nintendo's serious restrictions on physical products these days, Game had no way of sourcing the missing squid, meaning the retailer had to give customers the standard version of the game with Inkling Boy and Inkling Girl amiibo at a discounted rate. Whether or not fans were happy with that is a different question. Something else that might not be making people happy is the latest announcement from Oculus, which is that the Rift VR headset will set you back around $1,500, but that does include the PC you will need to use it. Realistically, that means that if you've already got a decent gaming rig, we have no idea how much you'll need to spend on the headset. Sorry. But it's not all good news for Oculus. High-profile company founder Palmer Luckey is being taken to court by his previous employer. Total Recall Technologies claimed that Luckey stole company information for a head-mounted display before jumping ship and creating Oculus, whose flagship product, the Rift headset, is, you guessed it, a head-mounted display. Luckey is the second company bigwig to be taken to court over similar fraud allegations. Former id Software chief John Carmack, now one of the head honchos at Oculus, faced similar action last year. Looking at streaming media now, and Twitch has cracked down on gamers broadcasting adult content. Specifically, if a game has been rated adults only by the American ESRB, you are no longer allowed to stream your progress via Twitch. Previously, the ban list had been decided on a case-by-case basis, but the company has decided to take a stand following some recent controversial releases. There are also a small handful of games that have been determined to violate the Twitch terms of service, including Second Life, and these are helpfully listed on the company website. Broadcasting any of these offensive titles will see your account temporarily suspended, and we assume that if you do it multiple times, you'll probably get in bigger trouble. In other MMO news, WildStar is officially moving to a free-to-play model less than a year after its initial launch. Starting later this year, there will be no straight-up purchase and no subscription, so you will be able to freely download the game and play it as much as you like. Yes, there will be in-game microtransactions, but developer Carbine Studios promises they will be restricted to cosmetic items and objects of convenience rather than a frustrating pay-to-win situation. Meanwhile, there are reportedly a couple of hardware revisions on the way at E3. First up, a new Xbox One controller is in the works, expected to arrive sometime this month. Keep an eye out for this one, the difference is subtle, but it's pretty awesome. Finally, the controller is getting a 3.5mm headphone port on the bottom, which means you'll be able to wear your own headphones while playing, rather than relying on the clunky Microsoft ones. And secondly, not one, but two new PlayStation 4 models, which will probably look all but the same from the outside, but contain different hardware on the inside. Expect a 1TB hard drive in one and 500GB in the other, while both weigh notably less than the current model. And moving right along, LEGO Worlds is out now on Steam Early Access, claiming to out-Minecraft. It's been created by TT Games, the studio that redefined LEGO video games, and you can explore, create and share your own virtual objects, all made out of LEGO bricks. It's not expected to fully launch until 2016, and it is PC only at the moment, but if you want in now, you are good to go. And finally, last week we heard about a brand new game from 2K codenamed Advent. We were shown a creepy science fiction world that promised us a utopia but delivered something much darker. Turns out that while some of us were hoping for a new IP and others wanted it to be the fabled return of Bioshock's Ken Levine, it's actually something very different. Advent is officially XCOM 2, a sequel to 2012's XCOM Enemy Unknown. More details are forthcoming in the lead up to E3, but we have two key bits we need to share right now. XCOM 2 is due out in November of this year, and it's already been confirmed as a PC exclusive. For more information on any of these stories, or to keep up to date with the latest gaming news, head to playerattack.com. But for now, stick around, we've got plenty more still to come.
If you're a bit of a crazy cat lady but can't have a feline companion for some reason, don't worry. A huge wave of cat-themed games has just hit the market, meaning you can have all the fun of a furry friend without needing to worry about the litter tray. First up is a Japanese entry, which will be right at home on your iPhone or Android device. It's called Nico Atsumi, which roughly translates to cat collection. And that's kind of the entire point of the game. You start out with a garden and a selection of objects, which you can place carefully in the hope that you'll attract neighbourhood moggies. Each cat is unique and has its own personal tastes. They might only like one type of food or one particular toy. Once you've made a cat happy enough, it will bring you a present. But keep in mind these are cat presents, so you can expect valuable objects including a shiny acorn, single earrings, clean handkerchiefs and even a dead bug. There's a slight barrier to entry with Nico Atsumi. The game is entirely in Japanese, with no plans for an English translation. There is a comprehensive tutorial mode to work through that shows how most things work, and if you're prepared to persevere for a bit and accept that you might not understand all of it, it's still totally playable. Sticking with mobile, there's a nifty little freebie called Nippy Cats, which is a lot more hands-on. There are two key concepts for this one: Kitty wants catnip and catnip wants to live. It's basically a game of keep away. You have the bag of catnip and an ever-increasing number of cats want to steal it from you. Drag your finger and the bag around the smartphone screen and the flock of cats will follow you, but be quick. Some move faster than others and new ones are appearing all the time. Another mobile game that might not be for cat lovers, but is an enjoyable thing in its own right, is Hacky Cat, by Australian developer Ken Wong. Like so many cat-related games, it is exactly what it sounds like it should be. A tap-based game of hacky sack, or footbag, where the hacky sack is replaced by a kitty cat. Several kitty cats, actually. As you successfully keep one in the air, another will drop in, and another, and another. You'll gradually build up quite the library of little cats, including Taco Cat, Pickles the Zombie, Mustachio, and my favourite, Hipster Cat. Catch cheeseburgers, because why not? Perform tricks and generally keep everyone in the air. Ken reassures us that absolutely no cats were injured in the creation of this game. Then there's Cat Lateral Damage, which has just hit Steam after a successful Kickstarter about a year ago. Cat Lateral Damage is a first-person cat simulator created by Chris Chung after a particularly inspiring game jam.
Are you tired of your cat having all the fun? Knocking things all over the floor without a care? Have you tried everything possible to get away with your cat-like behaviors? Such as blaming it on the cat?
What are you doing?
Oh, that was the cat.
Or dressing up like a cat? But who are you fooling? You're no cat.
But I just want a cat.
Now you can cat.
Huh?
With cat lateral damage.
What?
You are cooped up inside, so what do you expect to do? Knock stuff off, make a big mess, and generally be as annoying and cat-like as possible. You are, of course, rewarded for making as much of a mess as possible before the timer runs out. Of course, it's not terribly complicated, precisely unlike cats, some would say, but there are some impressive physics on show and it's an enjoyable little time waster. Play in the sandbox mode, little box mode, to explore your surroundings before jumping into the real deal. Remember, as well as that, you can't just knock things over. You have to knock all of the books onto the floor for it to count properly. And we shouldn't have to tell you what needs to happen when you see that china cabinet, right? You can also choose which cat you want to play as, the original black and white Nippy or someone totally different. It doesn't really change how you play the game, but if you've got a preference for tabbies, you can pick the one that resonates best. On the other hand, if you want something a little more simple, there's the completely free browser-based experience of My Garbage Cat Wakes Me Up at 3 AM every day. It's made by indie developer Will Herring, who says it's 100% accurate representation of what he goes through every night. Similar to cat lateral damage, you play as the cat, and your sole task is to wake up your human by making as much noise as you can, knocking things over, crying, and generally acting like a cat. It's not complicated and not particularly challenging, but if you need a quick cat fix, it could fill the gap. Now, obviously, these cats won't snuggle up under the blankets with you on a cold night, and they probably be less happy to see you when you get home from work. But at the same time, most will fit right in your pocket and you never have to worry about being late to feed them. Maybe they're not quite as good as the real thing, but hey, crazy cat lady's gotta do what she's gotta do.
In case you'd forgotten, the original Killing Floor started life as a mod for Unreal Tournament 2004. This brand new sequel takes everything the first game did well and builds on it, bringing Killing Floor 2 kicking and screaming into the current generation of gaming. If you never played the original, let me bring you up to speed. It's a wave defense game that prides itself on getting all the little things right. You and up to 5 teammates are fighting against a horde of Zeds, who technically aren't zombies as such. Technically, they're clones made for the military. As you might expect, 6 years after the original, the graphics have been tweaked and polished, but that's not what caught our attention the first time we loaded the game. Killing Floor 2 didn't so much grab our eyes as grab our ears, with an impressively heavy soundtrack complementing the immersive gameplay perfectly. Thrashing guitars, great sounding weapons, and some deliciously horrible sounding bad guys, it's a winning combination. You see, the weapons look as good as they sound and feel as good as they look, with the bigger guns both feeling and sounding heavier, while the Zeds are pretty visceral, whether they're trying to tear your face off or if you've just blown them up.
Things are about to get busy. Pick your targets. Watch one another's backs.
Oh, that's gone mental!
Welcome to Armageddon! Party time!
Now, rather than classes, Killing Floor 2 has 4 perks: Commando, Support, Berserker and Medic, each one coming with their own benefits. If you'd gotten used to the generous system of the original game, which gave you discounts on buffed weapons based simply on which perk you chose, sorry, that's not making a return this time around. All weapon discounts have been scrapped, weapon buffs have been nerfed, and most of those perk-specific bonuses are history. On one hand, this makes the classes a little bit less special, but on the other, it means you can use off-perk weapons while still being effective, if that's something that appeals to you. Each of those perks is still granted a unique spawn weapon from level 1, rather than waiting till level 5 in the original. Command gets an assault rifle, Support gets a shotgun, the Medic has a medic pistol, and the Berserker gets a sort of combination crowbar shovel, but of course if you'd prefer you can play with whatever weapon you want. This, combined with the fact that you now get 25 levels instead of just 6, means the game has broadened its appeal considerably, not to mention there are 6 additional perks currently in development.
You're just a bag of dots to me. The door's taking some punishment.
Tear you in
Break time's over. Get back to work.
Another major change to Killing Floor 2 is the way that difficulty increases as you progress through the levels. Last time around it was a simple case of encountering more powerful Zeds with more health who handed over less money. Now though, you might get the same number of Zeds and they might be a little bit stronger, but they've also learned new abilities and gotten plenty more aggressive. The basic Zed, known as Clot, starts out able to grab you and not let you go if you happen to get too close. As it levels up though, it'll start running at you faster and faster, meaning you'll need to be on your toes. Ranged Zeds, known as Husks, develop a new devastating flamethrower attack. Again, this is a major update that actually changes the way you'll need to play the game. You're no longer simply leveling up to face the harder difficulties, but now you need to develop more skills and strategies as everything changes quickly. At this stage, there are 3 maps available for the game, with more on the way. Each one has been designed to highlight different gameplay styles, while also containing story hints for gamers who like to know why they're fighting. The story is told entirely through random chat and secrets hidden in the maps, so expect things to grow and maybe change as new maps and characters are added. But no matter how the story plays out, you will be left to face the big boss. This time around, it's a mad German scientist left over from the Second World War. He's more diverse and tricky than the bosses we saw in the first game, with an arsenal including nerve gas, frag grenades, smoke grenades, and a set of claws that'll make short work of you if you get too close. As you might have guessed, Killing Floor 2 isn't quite finished yet, but it is out right now via Steam Early Access if you want to jump in right this very instant. It will be released properly later this year, and once the PC version is locked down, there are stories of a PS4 version showing up as well.
What have we here? No subjects to tinker with. I hope you like pain.
Oh, no!
I remember a time of chaos. This wasted land. But most of all, I remember the road warrior. The man we called Max.
Unless you were super into low-budget action movies from the early 1980s, or an Australian, the name Mad Max may not have meant an awful lot to you 6 weeks ago. In retrospect, this is kinda weird, as it paved the way for the testosterone-fueled man-fest that dominated 80s cinema. Being foreign and low-budget, Max never really hit the big time, but nonetheless became massively influential via the magic of cultural osmosis. Just look at anything post-apocalyptic ever. As of now, the world is in love with Max again, and rightfully so, because Fury Road is easily one of the best movies of the last 10 years. I shit you not.
In this wasteland, I am the one who runs from both the living and the dead. A man reduced to a single instinct. Survive.
Unlike other 80s revivals that so heavily rely on continuity like Alien or Predator, if you haven't seen Mad Max 1 or 2, and Thunderdome doesn't count, don't worry, you're cutting on pretty quick. The world's gone to shit, humanity has developed into barbarian-like clans, souped-up muscle cars are the only modes of transport, and Max is mad. And not long after establishing this in the first 5 minutes, Max is captured by the disposable suicide army commanded by Warlord and death metal asthmatic Immortan Joe. And hey, wouldn't you know it, it's around this time that Joe's #1 general, Furiosa, decides to smuggle the Warlord's breeding wives to freedom. The movie from there is essentially one giant and amazing car chase where Max reluctantly finds himself joining Furiosa in her quest to free the wives. That's basically the movie in a nutshell. But something Fury Road surprisingly pulls off is that the action and the narrative serve equal screen time, which is wicked rare for a movie essentially marketed on explosions. Often you'll find the two masterfully intertwining, with any scene allotted downtime either ending pretty quickly or steeped in a lingering feeling of an impending 100-mile-an-hour collision. On the flip side, the action easily builds the characters, not essentially through dialogue, definitely not in the case of Max, but in what they do and how they do it.
What a lovely day!
Okay, this is a fair point to chuck up a warning. Heads up, we're about to touch on some feminist and larger cultural points, so if this is going to upset you, I'm sorry. Hashtag not sorry. Surprise! This story isn't even about Max, it's about Furiosa. It's Furiosa who has the arc, Furiosa who has the stakes, Furiosa who has the agency. It's her film. But Max's name is on the title card, is a common response I've heard to this. Well, this is a recurring motif in the Mad Max films. 2 and, for the purpose of this point, Thunderdome, aren't about Max either. Max has always been a reluctant tool of other characters in his own movies. Nothing different this time around. Except for one thing. Max's primary focus in the previous films has always been about getting stuff. Gas, getting his car back, water, basically a general apocalyptic shopping list. However, in Fury Road, Max has been stripped of all this stuff, including his agency for the first 40 minutes. Now Max's prime goal is survival. The same goal as, you guessed it, Furiosa. For an action film, shit, any film, Max and Furiosa have a rare male-female co-lead dynamic. They share roughly the same screen time, and here's the kicker. They have a non-gender dynamic. What do I mean by this? Alright. In another film, a woman's a crack shot with a rifle. 90% of the time, the male protagonist will be taken back by this. Maybe make a funny little comment. In Mad Max, there is not even a beat. Hell, Furiosa kicks the shit out of Max the first time they meet, and he never once attempts to reassert his masculinity. Okay, so Max is no longer driven by the need for stuff, but the thread is still there. This time it's Joe who wants his stuff. His stuff being Furiosa, the brides, and the unborn babies. Which brings us to our next big theme, human objectification. Furiosa, the brides, the babies, hell even the war boys are Joe's property. Joe doesn't see them as people, they are a commodity of a tyrannical patriarchy. I'm just calling it how I see it.
I want them back! They're my property!
The fact that Fury Road manages to subtly and sometimes not so subtly insert these themes into the film, filled with amazing effects and neck-breaking action, is what makes it so powerful. Mad Max Fury Road is a prime example that action movies can be thought-provoking, all whilst you shovel popcorn in your face. Do yourself a favor and belt up before watching this.
And that's about it for this edition of Player Attack. Thanks for watching. Next week, Jonny Robot is headed back to the movies to take a look at Ex Machina, and we take a bit of time getting to know free-to-play MMO Marvel Heroes 2015. In the meantime, you can catch us on playerattack.com. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And if you've got something you want to say, send us an email, mailbox@playerattack.com, or just hop on our forums. Till next week, I'm Jessica Citizen, and this is Player Attack.